The Vertical Pursuit Podcast. I don't need to be so professional when I intro it, but I don't know. It's kind of what I'm used to in my background. Mike Barrett, Mike Tatlock with you. A lot has happened since we took a short respite. You had some traveling.
Yep.
And I've had some busy times as well, but we are back on the train now. And how you doing, first of all?
Doing great. Doing really good. We missed the podcast. We were just talking about this on Sunday. People keep coming up, when's the next podcast? When's the next podcast?
Which is a good thing.
It's a great
thing. We like when they say that. It feels like, I was thinking this the other day, man, there's so much. Well, let me start off by saying this. I'm on social media, and I always was back when I was an NBA broadcaster.
Yep.
I had to be.
Yep.
But I was never I'm not on Facebook. And I don't know why. Early on, they wanted me to have a Facebook page. This is way back. We had like a silly fans of, which I think is still out there. I never did anything on it, and it's almost like I didn't need one more thing. So I always did the Twitter thing. Then I was late to Instagram, which I'm on now. And then I never did TikTok. And then I had a couple of friends tell me how great TikTok is. And I'm like, well, all I've heard about that is that it's the Chinese going after your data, which they all are. Come on. And then finally I went, okay. I had a friend say, for your businesses, your little things that you do, you really should be.
Yeah.
So I got on. I tell you, it's awesome. And I hate to say that. And here's the worst part is, and I could get on my kids for this, my screen time has doubled.
Oh, has it really?
Yes. Because it's like at night, like my wife goes to bed at like 10. I'm more of a midnight guy,
yeah.
and I get 6 hours of sleep, maybe a night. So I lay there, and I used to always turn on History Channel, and I'd watch Pawn Stars, or I'd watch whatever, which was just kind of my going into neutral, Now I end up flipping through TikTok watching these stupid videos. Some are stupid, and then some are, you realize when you get caught in an algorithm, and then it figures you out.
That's the thing that's interesting about it.
So now for me, it's police stuff, because I'm very interested in that. It's a lot of military stuff, a lot of hunting, a whole lot of fishing stuff I get, which is great.
Exactly.
But then it'll sprinkle in stuff. I don't want to see people fighting. I don't like it after a while. Some of the stuff's kind of funny. I don't want to see, it got into this whole, somehow I got into the algorithm of Karens.
Oh, yeah.
So now all I get is Karen attacks. So these ladies going wild, screaming at people, undressing people in front of a counter of people at a restaurant, whatever. And I don't really like to see that. Some of it's funny, but I'm like, I don't like that. A couple of things I have noticed. Well, and then there's a UFO thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So because of everything that happened, all you have to do is watch
one or
two, and all of a sudden now all I get every other one is UFO stuff. And then the other one is a slot machine Vegas thing, where I watched this guy, how he helps people on the slot machines, and it's stupid because you can see how you'd be pulled into this, but I got pulled into it. So now my algorithm is littered with that. And I think it's because of TikTok and because of the time I've spent on there in the last 3 weeks. I don't like the way I feel. There are some things that are good feeling on there.
Yeah.
My wife watches the military homecomings all the time. So her Instagram is littered with those. Yeah. Now that's great, but I'll hear her sniffing on the bed and she's crying watching over and over and over
homecoming event.
Yeah. Where, they surprise the kids, surprise the dog, surprise the wife, whatever. And we've all seen those. And I don't mean that it doesn't make me feel good, but it's almost information overload, and it's not all positive. It's too much at times. And I'll get on there, and the next thing I know, half an hour has gone by.
That's exactly it.
And then I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because now I'm worried about UFOs, or I'm worried about, yesterday they started this whole thing about Russia and China and the military, and they're going up by Alaska, all this stuff. It had great footage of, which wasn't great, but it was informational, of the fires in Lahaina and Maui. But as far as all of that stuff combined with like the UFO stuff, it's what it has done is it's made me worry more. And that's not a good thing.
Right.
Now, we all have this desire for information.
Right.
Which I think is not a horrible thing, but I don't like what it has done in terms of, you feel like almost like you're not a sellout, but I think some of the point today of a lot of people who are well, I don't know, I want to say anti-faith or anti-Christian is to dehumanize people. And I end up feeling like some of that stuff that I watch, it's dehumanizing.
It is,
a little bit,
right.
Which I think is kind of an issue with a lot of things. But my point in kind of some of this stuff was maybe it's because of my exposure now to more and more stuff. Not that I've ever been sheltered by anything, but I feel like are we fast forwarding through a ton of crap really fast? and if I don't like how the world's going faster toward what feels like is not a great end.
Yeah. But no, and I think that's so we've heard this statement before, fear porn. Because we know that there are people who commoditize fear. You can make money on fear. Fear sells. Everybody knows that.
Doom scrolling. That's the whole thing. And so the idea is like, I'm a junkie for doom scrolling, you know? Yeah.
And everybody wants to know. I think there's another aspect that when you look at what TikTok social media is, and this came out in a movie years ago called The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Which was phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, you should.
It's Netflix.
It's a few years dated, but it's still relevant today. Basically, in a day, though, is I think the scariest part for me in all of this is the realization that we are actually programmable beings. And if you think about it, you know, everybody thinks like a program, like your computer, you can upload, download a program.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And our brains are wired the same way as we process information. The things we see, you know, like the Bible talks about the eyes are the window to the soul and the window to the heart. And so what you process in through your five senses, especially when you're watching something and you're hearing it together, it's actually shaping your heart. And it's shaping you.
Yeah.
It's shaping your perspective. It's actually, and this is the scary part, in a biological sense, it is rewiring your brain. And so when the Bible says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, the question I have is, what is the unwinding or what is the downloading of my mind that's not rewiring it in the way that's a healthy way, in a good, healthy transformation, formational, godly sort of way, so that when I get done with it, am I feeling more peaceful? Am I feeling more restful? Am I feeling more hopeful? Because if I'm not, my brain's probably not being wired in the right way. And I think the other thing, we talked about this in a podcast a long time ago, but somebody mentioned it recently, is more than any other time in human history, because of social media and the access to technology, you can be omnipresent.
For sure.
So you can be omnipresent. Somebody that can be on the other side of the world right now can load up a live stream and you can tune into that and you can instantly know what's going on. So for the first time in the history of human life, you can have so much information that you're kind of everywhere, but the reality is we're not created to carry the burden of being omnipresent. So it sounds like a blessing when actually it's a burden. And it reminds me of that scene out of the movie with Jim Carrey when he was playing Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty, yeah.
And there was a scene where it's like, oh, I want to be God, because if I'm God, then I have all the power to do everything. And of course, he does what we would do. And that's what made it a comedy, is how do I use it for my own advantage and all of that, which was funny. But then there was a serious moment where he's laying in bed and all of a sudden his inbox notification goes off on his computer.
I'll just answer yes to all these prayers.
You know, exactly it. And all of a sudden he's just, because he can't, you're not wired to be God. You're not wired to manage the overstimulation, the overload of burdens and news and information and tragedies and anxieties and fears. That's why statistically anxiety is through the roof. That's why we have a generation that has grown up on it and they're dealing with it at a crisis level. So, yeah, there's a lot of good in it, though. So I'm not here to slam the whole thing, but there's a lot of, like, information that, how many times do you want to learn something? I watch tons on cooking, hunting, outdoor, sports, you know, spiritual stuff for sure. I'm always watching like sermonette snippets or short messages, and it's like, oh, that was really good. So there's good things in it.
Well, I had to watch a video today on how to use our podcast machine because Colton's not here, and I'm like, so it's just you and me, and we started with like 5 guys in here, and now it's down to us. We've been completely
2
abandoned
guys in the garage right now.
Yeah, we've but no, I agree with you, and then like, we're going to talk about this in a second, but like with old cars, old trucks.
Yeah.
and you've recently come into an old truck.
Yeah.
So, and I was joking the other day because I'm no mechanic, but I'm decent at stuff. Where would I be without YouTube?
I know.
I mean, in all this. So yes, there are positives to this, but to go back to something you said a minute ago about being programmed and the potential to be programmed, the one thing that we can control then is what we're allowing to program us.
Yep.
If you have some awareness about all sides of things. So I am always drawn to the people who tend to want to hear things like I've talked about Andy Stanley before, who I love. Andy reads books written by atheists because he wants to see what they say.
Right.
He's not afraid of it.
Right.
And oftentimes if I start hearing something that I don't agree with, I don't want to hear it, but I need to hear that. I need to hear all sides of things, and I like that. Doesn't mean it changes my belief.
Right.
But I guess the point I'm going to is, like, especially with young people, we know even from the Devon Archer trial the other day, or the test of, the networks didn't touch it.
No.
Didn't cover it.
Nope.
So I guess my point is, with kids, if you are only getting programmed by one entity or one narrative, that's dangerous.
Extremely
and that's
dangerous.
happening through, when I go back to these social media platforms and TikTok as well. If somebody is in control of that message, and I think it's pretty clear they are, how do you help them other than wade into this? Because we also have a friend who's like, why are you on social media? You shouldn't be. That's where we got to shine a light in there.
Totally. Absolutely.
Isn't there massive potential then to at least?
Oh, absolutely. It's like that with everything, though. You know, when you think of technology just in general, the question is, just because we can, does that mean we should? You know, we always say that technology outpaces ethics.
For sure.
And so just because we can do it, ethically, is this good for us? Morally, is it good for us? Developmentally, relationally, sociologically, like all those other factors, are these things that are so advantaged really something that we should indulge into the level that we are? Or should there be some, but it's like moderation with everything, so that has to come into it. But when it comes from impact, it's like saying if there's an audience that's listening and this is a vehicle to reach more people, because that's where people are at, then we're going to use that. We're going to take advantage of that opportunity to reach as many people as possible. And then on the other side, how do you not let something that is a benefit become a burden or become a vice? And that's, again, where the moderation thing is. You know, you can treat anything like that. Anything, a hobby, playing golf. Can it be relaxing and exercise? Yeah. Can it become an addictive obsession? Absolutely. Can it break up relationships? Yeah, if you choose that over other relationships. So with anything, you have to have the self-control. The question on the table is, I don't think most people do.
And young people, they're not developed enough to understand what that means.
No. And so and the other thing that's scary about it on the programming side of it, because our brains it's an organism that can be programmed 100%. The Bible speaks to that. Neuroscience speaks to that. So then the question is, who's in charge of the programming? Well, you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be, because you have to govern yourself. Therefore, you should be the one. But the problem is, you don't have enough judgment. You don't have enough discernment. You don't have enough self-control to even govern yourself. Therefore, you get sucked into something, and now whoever is the main voice, narrative driver is going to be the one that's governing you. So what we should be controlling is end up controlling us.
It's scary, again, as I say. I worry about it with my kids, and my kids, we're in a bubble where we grow up. They're not exposed to, they have social media, but they've had a great upbringing for the most part. We're not perfect parents. Nobody is. But what I worry about is those kids who don't have that perspective and then get hit with this. And when when you're talking to someone or you're watching someone talk and you're like, how in the world did you get to that point? And how do you really believe what you're saying? And in their defense, to go back to this, they've been programmed.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the dangerous part of all of this in what it is doing to lay a foundation of untruth. So then how do you even start after years and hours a day of hearing a consistent message that may be massively incorrect or even evil. As a pastor, which you are, how do you start to chip away at that and strip down somebody to where they're even capable of listening or entertaining an alternative narrative than what they are used to and what has been fed into them?
Well, and the thing on that too is the thing about what algorithms do is algorithms feed your bias.
Yes.
That's what they're designed to do. And so when you go down a rabbit trail on a topic, an issue, and most of the time it's, like we were started talking earlier, you could do a rabbit trail on, working on cars. Next thing you know, that's all the videos.
Yep.
But you could also start going down rabbit holes on topics, cultural issues that are much more weightier. And before you know it, it's going to lock in and go, we're going to feed that to you. And so it can reinforce a bias that then doesn't allow you to see a broader view on things. You're only going to be reinforced from that one side. It's interesting you're bringing this up. By the way, we didn't know. We were just kind of running here.
We never do. Well, we kind of do. Sometimes we get a topic.
Yeah,
We didn't have
true.
one to start this one, but I have
here's,
some other ones.
it's interesting. Just today, it was like an hour ago. This is Wednesdays when I do sermon prep day. And this weekend, we're preaching on probably one of the most well-known misused statements in the Bible. And it's a statement out of the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus says, don't judge others. Don't judge others, or you'll be judged. And in our world, people say it all the time. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. And what's interesting, though, is it's true that Jesus he did say those words, but the word judge, 90% of the time in the Bible, the Greek word for the word like judge means to have discernment. It means to weigh the evidence. It means to be investigative. It means to come to a decision that's well-informed, not overly biased, but it has roots in the investigation. So to judge something means I'm looking at everything. I'm waiting before I draw any conclusions. I'm going to look at the truth behind it and the falseness in it. And then after all of that, I'm going to come up with a conclusion and a decision. That's 90% of the time, that word judge speaks to that. So there's a few times when it says don't judge each other, when it's about condemning people. So in our culture right now, though, it's actually an asset to have the ability to judge something. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody or I'm listening to something on a podcast, iTunes, or if it's on social media, TikTok, whatever, how many people have actual critical thinking skills to have good judgment? Like growing up, remember we were always taught you should have good judgment.
Yeah. Now it's be a sheep.
Yeah, that's
and the
exactly
sheep don't
what it
have
is.
judgment.
They don't have
the
judgment.
lions tend to have judgment. If you want to put it in a popular,
Exactly.
we've heard that a lot. No, I agree with you. And it isn't a negative thing when you look at it that way. I want my kids to be judgmental.
Yes, they should be. That's what I'm saying is, so we have to take that context of what Jesus said and use it in the right way, which he was saying, don't go around and be self-righteous and hypercritical and, damn you. That's really where that phrase comes from. I'm condemning you. Jesus is like, that's not your place to do that.
Yeah.
So even with people that we disagree with, I'm not here to damn them. I'm not here to condemn them. Jesus said he didn't come to condemn the world. Now, there will be a time in the future when Jesus returns and there is coming judgment, but that's not now. And so it's not our place to pass judgment in the condemning sort of way where I'm better than you, I'm putting you down, I'm hypercritical, I'm abusive, manipulative, all those sort of negative things. That's what Jesus was talking about. But what we should be embracing is judgment. Do you have good judgment? Meaning, do you have the ability to think critically, to be able to look at things, or are you just being spoon-fed and just believing what the masses tell you? And we have a bunch of sheep out there and this is where I think the other thing that scares me to death, and this will be a segue probably into another topic, because I think one of these we're going to talk about UFOs, probably maybe the next one.
Yeah, maybe.
But we live in a government right now where I think our biggest crisis in America is a government you can't trust.
Have you seen the recent, I think it was recent, at least it's making its rounds now, is where Obama is talking about how to destroy a society and is to make them question their leaders,
Yes.
question elections,
Yep.
question the media,
Yeah.
and then they ultimately question themselves, and then you got them. And I don't know if that was a warning or a game plan, but I tend to think it was a game plan.
Well, yeah.
And that's where, okay, so then given what you just talked about, so then you could almost say it's a good thing to be exposed to as much. I mean, I hate to say that because I know we don't want to sit there and waste weeks on social media. But I think to put it in, is it accurate to say in the 40s or 50s, when our parents were young, was it a bad thing to have them read a ton and read books?
Right.
This is what I would say to somebody, even to myself, who starts to be critical of those who absorb a ton of information. Isn't that what they were doing then? And now, because of technology, and it's not all positive stuff, but it's not all negative stuff either, depending on where where the algorithm takes you. And then you can go to the whole thing of who's creating the algorithm. Where do they want you? I hate that part. But to ingest and perhaps digest as much content as possible is maybe not necessarily such a bad thing.
No, I think, and that's why we have to be informed, but it's how you're informed. And do you have the skills to weigh what you're being informed by and with? Which is where, so if I'm a Christian, let's just use this as an example. Maybe some of you that are listening aren't. You'll appreciate what I'm going to say in this. The Bible is a filter. So the Bible is a filter in which I process the information that comes in. So, filters are used for a number of things in the world, the air filters, water filters, and so forth. And what's the whole goal of the filter? The filter is to prevent the bad stuff from coming in and allow the good stuff to come in, right? And so it works both ways. But if people have a wrong filter, and the technical word for that is a worldview, everybody has a worldview. Your worldview is your filter, and it's the filter in which you decide what's truthful, what's right, what's wrong, morally, all of that. That's what the definition of a worldview is. It's your filter in which you perceive the reality of life and truth, morality, all of that. So if I'm a Christian, I believe the Bible is my worldview, so it's the filter. So the more mature I am in understanding the Word of God, the Bible, then the filter of that helps me go, you know what? I'm watching something, or I'm allowing something to come into my life through social media, TV media, and I can spot it instantly and go, wait a minute, that's not truth. In fact, that's not only is that not truth, that's harmful, that's evil. The Bible talks about how there'll be a day where people will redefine evil and good. They'll call good evil and evil good.
For sure.
Well, how do you know that? How do you know? How do you know? If you're someone that's living in the U.S. right now and you're watching something and you're like, how do I know if that's good or evil? Well, you have a filter, your worldview, but if it's not a biblical one, then you may actually come up with a conclusion that something that's evil, because you were told it's good, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it is. And you'll be bought into it naively and seduced by it, whatever. So to me, it's a matter of when people talk about information coming in through different mediums, I'm like, make sure you have the first most important medium, which is the Bible. Because if you don't have that filter in place, you're going to be very susceptible to being deceived, manipulated, and that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening.
So how do you encourage then somebody who maybe isn't it? Well, kids too, but maybe who isn't a kid, comes from a background where they didn't have any biblical knowledge. How do you construct or encourage them or assist them in constructing a filter that then would give them a more peaceful life with more happiness and less sitting around on TikTok getting angry?
Well, I know. It's true. I catch myself with it. I catch myself because I do want to be very informed, and there's a reason for it. I have to do it with moderation and balance because I think everybody who's a leader needs to be. There's a verse in the Old Testament where it talked about the sons of Issachar, and it said that they knew their times. They knew their times, and it was a compliment because they were seen as ones. The sons of Issachar were in charge of leading the nation of Israel. As a leader, you need to know what's going on for two reasons. It's like, one, you know what to avoid, and you know where to lead people in the right way. And like, I'm accountable as a leader, not just to teach the Word of God, but to help people live the Word of God. in a non-Word of God culture. And so for me, I have to find hooks to help people go, how do I take God's truth and principles and put it on the hook of what you're experiencing in this world? And because all the time, like something pops up where it's like, okay, here's a definition of marriage. Here's a definition of gender. Here's a definition of reconciliation. Here's a definition of justice. I mean, all these words that are used out there. Well, who's defining that? And then what definition are you buying into? And the thing is this is another concern I have, is our culture is saying you should trust you as the filter.
Right.
You get to decide. Whereas my answer would be, for me, is I don't get to decide that. The Bible decides that for me. God's word decides that for me. I don't get to go, well, I like that, and so I'm going to put a different definition on it that suits me, suits my own appetite, suits my own desires. But that's this kind of relativistic, I'm the authority of my life. We would say it this way. In our world right now, authority comes from authenticity. And that's not good, because what it's saying is be your authentic self. Yeah. And your authentic self is the authority in your life.
It's the world.
Yeah. And so if everybody is living their authentic life and that becomes the authority in your life, the Bible even talks about your heart is deceitful and wicked. Like your own heart, your own feelings, your own what you think about something can deceive you.
You always read that in the Bible. You read the term the flesh. The flesh, the flesh, the flesh, which means that, means us. So ideally then, I mean, for you as a pastor and somebody who obviously interacts with a lot of people, and oftentimes your opinion is requested, it would almost be like you would be from a movie or where we see when a world leader or a president pays someone every day, first thing in the morning, to come in and give a daily briefing. Yeah. This is what happened overnight. Yeah. And here are some things that you should be aware of. Right. Because you got to be aware of all that stuff on both sides. I'm not sure that happens anymore. I mean, I'm not sure Grandpa gets out of bed before 1 p.m. but I think, wouldn't you think you as a leader in that case, even if you're leading a company, ideally you would want somebody to come in who is a paid staff who stayed up all night to come in and present you a list of things that happened either while you were checked out or while you were sleeping or whatever, so that you can make have a reasonable response and create an opinion in hopes of leading others in you knowing all sides of that issue. Right. That's what I don't think happens anymore.
No, it doesn't. And that comes back to what I was saying earlier with the trust issue. And when I said earlier, the biggest issue our nation faces is a trust issue. And I think that's because we have a track record on both sides, but we have a track record, and it's not even just in government, it goes to corporations. Because for so long, I remember back in the days, Duracell batteries and Energizer were always, and so you sit here and you're like, okay, I got to buy some freaking batteries. I just need to go buy some freaking batteries. All of a sudden you see a Duracell commercial, and they're like, no, we're the better one, we're the da-da-da. And then the Energizer ones, no, we're better. And you're literally sitting here going, well, they're both claiming truth of what's better. So who do I believe anymore? That's a simple analogy of the world in which we live is nobody knows who to trust anymore.
That's for sure.
So now it's a matter of you're going to pick the most trustworthy person to help you be informed the way that you think would be best for you. So, for instance, COVID breaks out, just using that as an example. That was a massive decision people had to make around, am I going to stick something in my body that I'm not sure, I'm not a doctor or whatever. So what do? Well, you hear a million opinions. You're going to go to someone who you trust.
Or used to trust.
Now, the question on the table is then, can I trust the people I used to trust? So it's, again, all this comes back to these trust issues.
It's a crappy feeling.
It is. Because you have people, I would say this, you have people who, that you trust that are misinformed, and they still have good hearts. They believed it. They weren't trying to be deceitful.
But who are they trusting?
Well, that's exactly. So who are they trusting? So when I say I'm trusting you to inform me, The question is, who are they trusting?
Yeah.
Because now I'm actually trusting who they're trusting. So consider the source of the source of the source of the source that you're putting your trust in, and it makes it complicated. You know, it's the same thing. You go to get an opinion from a doctor on a health issue, and you're like, oh, this is scary. Do I trust this doctor or this specialist? Do I get a second, third, fourth opinion? Why are you doing that? Well, I think it's a good thing to do that.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure, like, we're fallible people. Sometimes we're fallible innocently, meaning no ulterior motives. I was just misinformed. I put my trust in the wrong source, and I passed that wrong information on to other people. And so I didn't intentionally deceive them, but nonetheless, I led them down the wrong path because of my misinformation and where I put my trust. And then you do have some people out there that are intentionally deceptive, misleading, manipulative, and they want you to trust them because they want to control you. They want to deceive you. They want to use you for their own gain.
And I was going to say they profit off that.
They profit off of that. And so even companies right now, what businesses do you trust? Why did Duracell and Energizer get into that? Because at the end of the day, they want your money. So they want to convince you to put your trust in them. So branding and marketing becomes mediums of trust. And then that's why they go to celebrities. Why are celebrities? Because people develop this relationship with them. And
feel like they know them.
It's a face. It's a face on the organization. It's a face on the corporation. Because I'm not going to trust a logo anymore. But you know what? If you can find a spokesperson, they know that. And so then people trust the spokesperson, and that's how it's all part of the same end game, which is we want your money. So we're sitting here as citizens of a society where you have government that wants your trust because they want to exploit you for their gain, businesses, corporations, and I would even say tech companies, social medias. Everybody wants your loyalty and your allegiance and your trust. And I'm not always convinced, probably majority of the time, I'm not convinced it's because they really care for us. It's because they want to control us or they want something from us.
One way to control you is to scare the pants off you.
Absolutely.
And I read a bunch of stuff, and I try to read all sides, so I'm not it's not black or white necessarily with me, even though sometimes I think it seems like it is. But you mentioned COVID a minute ago. There was a leaked email and I don't have the facts on this, so don't check me on this, but it was somebody in Great Britain, it was somebody in the UK, and they had written back and they intercepted this or got an email, and it said, we need to scare the pants off the public to get them to conform.
Yes.
And to, for whatever their gain was, which I think, and then you go down the road of when you start learning. I was listening to RFK Jr. talk about, and I didn't know some of this stuff just as far as the drug big pharma, and 80% of the ads on the evening news are pharmaceutical companies. Right. So is it any wonder why forced compliance or why they would want you to comply? It all ends in money. And it again, you go back to the Bible, that we were warned of that. But I did used to think it was so much easier in the past when I was young, and the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, and then Peter Jennings, and then Tom Brokaw, and then Bernard Shaw, and all these trusted figures as you're talking about. So you talked about a spokesperson and an endorser. Well, these back then, those were the trusted endorsers. Those were, you trusted them with news. So then I look back and go, what was so much better then? But then I go, well, was it? And was it any necessarily different, or were you just hearing the hymn book and trusting everything they were saying, and now you're getting an alternative narrative and something to judge that message against? How easy would it have been in the 70s and 60s to control the nation when there were 3 TV channels?
Right.
And I'm not saying they were doing that.
Right.
But you start going down, you mentioned a minute ago, you start going down some of these rabbit holes and you start going, were we all?
Yeah.
Were we just being controlled then? And were we given the truth then? Yep. I don't know.
Who knows?
And I hate what it does to, because a lot of people don't put their fingers in their ears and head in the sand and go, I don't care.
Yep.
I can't think about all that because it stresses me out.
I hear that a lot as a pastor, though. That's the one I do hear. That, we try to do things where we're like, how do you help people discern the times you're in? Because the Bible tells us you should be discerning, meaning it's another word for judgment. You should be judgmental. So when there's a candidate, a spokesperson, somebody that's offering you something that wants your allegiance, they want your money, they want your investment, they want anything from you, you should be judgmental. Not in a condemning sort of way, but I need to make sure I am thoroughly investigating, discerning that what they're telling me, and that's gonna require a burden of effort and time. And this is the thing. People don't want to put time into things because they want first of all, they're busy. So they don't have time. There's that. So people will come to me and they'll say, as a pastor, you do that work. You do that work and then you bring it to the church, which, I'm fine with some of that. But it's like, no, you need to do this for yourself. Because again, Paul said when he was preaching, there was a group of people called the Bereans, and he said, you need to check the Bible for yourselves to even make sure I'm telling the truth.
Right.
So I'm looking at people going, yeah, I'm a pastor. I'm here to, but you need to trust the word more than even trust me. I mean, trust me. Yes, that's you have to earn that in order for me to say that. But my desire should be like, hey, trust the word and even like hold me accountable. So if you're listening to something I say and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't jive with the Bible, then yeah, that should raise some judgmentalness in you or discernment in you. But people want shortcuts. You do all the work. You do all the sermon prep. I don't have to read the Bible for myself. I don't have to do my own Bible study because it's either out of laziness or it's out of I'm not equipped. So that's not lazy. That's just I don't know how or I don't have time. But all of those things doesn't help someone have the skills to be discerning for themselves. And we really need that. So that's why I tell, if you get a leader, this is why I think any leader, spiritual, so a pastor, political, corporate, they should be telling you, they should be championing, fact check me,
yes.
fact check me. If they don't, then I'm going, I don't know. But if a leader gets up there and says, hey, you know what, here's the information, you guys should fact check me, that would start a positive revolution in our country. Yeah. We'd actually have leaders of integrity saying, here's what I'm putting before you, fact check it. If I'm missing something, I'll own it. But then even numbers, people get in there and they skew them to their information, studies, data. And so it's so complex. We're so deeply layered in disloyalty, distrust, deception, all of those things that makes it really hard.
Well, and that's what you're kind of saying is people who form an opinion based on like you'll be watching the news on a cable news show and they'll dive into a heavy topic and and joining us now are, 4 experts and each of them get about 10 seconds.
Yep.
And then they move on to a commercial break. Yep. And then you're supposed to form an opinion on that.
Exactly.
And that is so difficult. And that is why I think hopefully, and I know who has the time, I get it. That's where the long form podcast, this is the value of this new format of media, the podcast.
Yeah.
And the king is Rogan. We all know that. And he says this all the time. And he'll have somebody on for 4 hours talking about 1 or 2 topics. And I know who has the time to listen to that. But honestly, that is sometimes the only way you are going to at least form a foundation where you can then make a accurate judgment on what the actual truth is, because you're not going to get it from a headline. And I was around the media enough to where, and if you didn't know this, the guys who are writing the stories in the paper, they don't write the headlines. There's a headline writer. And many, many times, and granted, mine was in the sports world, where the headline had very misleading based on what the body of the story is. So I would read the body of a story and go, man, I got pissed when I read that headline, but that's not what that meant. It's not what it said. But the headline writer's job is it's a neon light.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tweak an emotion in you that's gonna make you read this story and engage with it. Now, this is back in the newspaper world, but I don't think it's that much different now.
No, not at all.
In other words, that's a small model of, are you headline reading or are you taking the time to read the body?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, and you can put that into a biblical context as well, are you getting a snippet which is out of context, and is that tweaking your emotion? Or are you sitting down and having the discipline to take the time to truly find out
Yes.
what was meant
Yep.
out of that and what words were in context and not thrown around in order to tick you off?
You're right.
And so I think, and that's obviously human nature. If it was that way in the Bible to some degree, and then it's repeated now, it's not that much different than is going on from a newspaper or even a website
Right.
who's running headlines at you in order to get you to engage.
Exactly. And I think journalists today, there are those out there that are interested in presenting truth, presenting facts, presenting perspective that weighs everything, and they provide their research in there and all that. And then, I mean, today there's such a rush. How many times have we seen the news put a headline, like you just said? They don't care if it's true or not.
No.
They just need it in front
Need
of
your
you.
time, man.
Exactly. Because it's all about a battle for your allegiance. Because if they get your allegiance, they get everything. Money, they get your support, all of that. They don't care if it's true anymore. They just need to get you to click it, follow it, emotionally, whatever.
There was something I thought of a minute ago. It's why I grabbed, if you watch The Chosen, you learn the personalities of the disciples, and Matthew is awesome. And you start to learn a personality of the disciples, and it helps to watch like The Chosen. And you don't want to put everything on that, but you start to learn personalities. And you talked about fact checking. So the book of Matthew, I know a ton of people skip the first.
Oh yeah, the genealogy part.
The genealogy. So Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. And he goes on and on. But then I heard it said one time by somebody I was listening to years ago. Essentially, what Matthew was doing there, fact check me.
Yep.
Watch this.
Yes.
And he was trying to show you he had done his homework.
Yep.
And he had done this lineage and this family tree where he said, I'm about to tell you the truth, but before I do that, let me show you that I'm qualified to, and let me show you that my opinion comes from lots of research and lots of education.
Yep.
And I used to skim over that part in Matthew. I still kind of do, but it means something different to me after somebody told me that.
Oh yeah. And especially because he knew, speaking to the book of Matthew and the Gospels was written primarily to a Jewish audience. Each gospel had an audience, same story of Jesus, but told from, different lenses of the eyewitnesses, but also to the audience. Everybody speaks to it. Anyway, so it was spoken to a Jewish audience. And for them, they knew that the Messiah had to come from a certain lineage. And so Matthew, who's writing this, had the burden of proof on his side. Mm-hmm. That he has to, I have to prove this to you.
Yeah, the first part of that book is, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
That's a great way of saying it. That's a great way of saying that. That's exactly it. It's funny you said it that way, because I do think that is, trust and truth should go hand in hand. You should never trust someone that's not telling the truth or sharing the truth. But again, whose truth, right? And all of that. And it reminds me, and not to pick on this, but I'll just give this example to circle back. But you take the CDC, for instance, and when COVID came out and everybody was required to get the vaccine, and there was a large portion of the black community that was like, nope. And they were shamed over it. They were shamed over that. Sure. Trust the science.
We're going to trust you?
Well, and if you do, and again, I don't have time to get in this podcast, but you do your history research, you will see there was a time in recent U.S. history, but what I mean by that, in the last 100 years, where medical companies took advantage of the black community, used them as guinea pigs to run their testing, lied to them over syphilis and other vaccines, and it was like, and then it came out. And that's why there was a generation within the black community that remembers that.
Good for them.
And so when they were told, hey, just trust us, they were like, well, we did that last time.
Exactly.
And that's why I keep coming back to the biggest issue in our nation is we have a vacuum of trust and we have an integrity crisis. And because of that, it bleeds into everything that's out there.
Yeah.
everything out there. And so we have to be, as a people, not sheep that follow blindly, but be awake and in tune. And that's why I say at the end of the day, like, I trust Jesus, his word. People say, well, how do you even trust the Bible? And that's another topic called apologetics. But you could sit here and we can spend an hour and say, here's all the evidence. So putting on trial the
Maybe
Bible.
we will.
Put the Bible on trial, just like you said, Matthew said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yeah.
Put the Bible on trial. And I've spent years of my life studying that trial. And the Bible comes out standing the test that is trustworthy. So that's why I can put my trust in it, as I'm living in a untrusting world.
And for you and I personally, as we wrap up, what we can hope and pray for is that people do their homework, take the time, and be discerning and have the discipline to research. And it's our hope and prayer that they too will wind up with the conclusion that the Word of God is the authority.
That's right. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about anything we set out to talk about. What else is new? But thanks for spending some time with us. We'll see you on the next episode of Vertical Pursuit. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, comment, or message us, and check out our website at verticalpursuit.org. Download the VP app and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.